Good evening. Good evening. How are you? Well. My name is Father Stan Chu Ilo. I am a research professor here at the Center for World Catholicism and Intercultural Theology, the center organizing the event of tonight. And on behalf of the director of the center, Professor Bill Kavanaugh, and all of us at the center, especially those present here, we have Karen Kraft, who is in charge of our communication and the editorial work. Is Karen here? Just stand to be recognized. And Francis Salina, who is directing the traffic outside. I don't think he's still in here. We welcome you to this, the third of our series on Christian-Muslim dialogue globally. We've had the first one about Africa, the second one about the Middle East, and the final one today going to focus on what's going on in Philippines. So the Center for World Catholicism and Intercultural Theology established in 2008 here so that there is a focus on the movement of Christianity in the global south, especially the cultural movements, the interaction of cultural forces, and all how they combine in shaping the direction of the future for Christianity. So it's a center of research and a center where so many people from all over the world gather, just like we have done this evening, to talk about things that are so important in the shaping of our contemporary situation, our contemporary society. And so today, we're going to focus on Muslim Catholic dialogue in the Philippines, prospects, possibilities, and challenges. And permit me to also recognize in our midst the Consul General of the Philippines, who is here with us, Generoso DJ Kalonghe. So our moderator for today is someone whose biography is very inspirational, talking about Father Erdman Pandero. Father is a Catholic priest from the Filipino Archdiocese of Cagayan de Oro in Mindanao. He previously served as secretary to the chair of the Philippines Episcopal Commission on Interreligious Dialogue. Currently, he is at Catholic Theological Union, CTU, here in Chicago, completing his doctoral thesis titled Neighborliness, Redefining Communities at the Frontier of Dialogue in the Southern Philippines. Father Erdman is the son of a devout Muslim father and a devout Catholic mother. What a wonderful combination here. Yeah, his experience is unique and powerful. As he told us, I can pray the Allahu Akbar and the Hallelujah in one phrase. I can read Arabic and pray my rosary using the tasbih. And I usually end my sentence with Inshallah, that is, if Allah wills. My prayer period coincides with the time of Muslim prayer time. So it is my singular privilege to welcome and hand over the podium now to Father Erdman, who is here. Please join me in welcoming him.
Yeah, I can actually say my prayers in Arabic sometimes. So we're actually here to, we're so privileged to have our distinguished speakers for today. They're actually going to present to us, as Father Stan said, the prospects, possibilities, and challenges in Muslim and Catholic dialogue in the Philippines. But because this is a Muslim and Catholic dialogue, I ask our speakers for today if we can start with the prayer. So if you can, our identity both as Muslims and Catholics. To begin with Surah Al-Fatiha.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Rabbil alamin rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. And we also say with our Christian brothers and sisters, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thanks. So as we are to begin with the panel discussion today, just point for housekeeping. If you haven't turned off your phones or put it in silent modes, please do it now. And if you're putting it on vibrate mode, it's actually a very good acoustic here, so it's still going to disrupt our speaker, so please just turn it off or put it in silent mode. The second one is that I'll be presenting, I'll be introducing our speakers, and they will be giving their presentations. The question and answer portion will be at the end of Father June Mercado's, the second speaker's presentation. So reserve your questions. We do have our microphone stand here that would be at the end of the second presentation. Thank you. Now I'll be introducing to you our distinguished speakers. Although you have a complete list of the bio, but then I'll just introduce them to you. Our first speaker is a noted peace and human rights advocate and president of the Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy. She is the managing trustee of the Magbasa Kita Foundation Incorporated, which promotes literacy for peace and development for adult learners. She's also a founding member of Women in International Security in the Philippines and Muslim Women Peace Advocates in Sulu, Philippines. She holds a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of the Philippines and a master's in business administration from the Asian Institute of Management. She also has a master's in public administration from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. In 2007, she received the Muslim Democrat of the Year Award from the Washington, D.C. based Center for the Study of Islam and Democracy. And in this year, 2016, she is awarded as the most distinguished alumna of the University of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my privilege, and we are so blessed to have with us today Ms. Amina Rasul Bernardo. June is actually enjoying the sunshine right now in the Philippines. He is in the Philippines. We will be having him via Skype. So I think he heard us, but we cannot see him because of the presentation. But he's actually with us, right? Yes. So our second speaker is an expert of the role of Islam in the Philippines and a longtime Mindanao peace advocate. He chairs the National Peace Council, which works to resume the formal peace talks between the national government and all rebel fronts, including Moro National Liberation Front, or the MNLF, and he has also served as chair of the Independent Ceasefire Monitoring Committee of the Philippine government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. He holds a doctorate in divinity and humanity and an MA in both theology and philosophy, having also completed work in Islamic studies and Arabic studies at the Gregorian University in Rome and Oriental Institute in Cairo in Egypt. In 2007, he worked for several months as consultant to the Sudan Catholic Bishops' Regional Conference on peace building, healing, and reconstruction. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to welcome and be blessed for, we have our speaker from the Philippines and a sunshiny day, summer day, Father Eliseo John Mercado Jr. OMI. A big round of applause for him.
Father Kalongi, Father Stan, Father Digong, as he is called, Dodong, sorry. Digong is the presidential candidate. Oops. Father Dodong, Father June, Professor Salinel, friends, magandang hapon. Assalamualaikum sa inyong lahat. Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me to come to DePaul University to share with you thoughts from Mindanao. You are lucky today because you have an all-Mindanao panel. Father Dodong is Cagayan de Oro, and we're from different parts of Mindanao. I'm from island part of Mindanao, Sulutawi-Tawi Basilan, and Father June is from Cotabato City. If you're looking at areas of conflict, Father June would represent the area where the Moro Islamic Liberation Front is active, and I come from the area where the Moro National Liberation Front is particularly active. And Father Dodong?
It's in the neutral zone.
He's in the neutral zone. Which is the neutral zone? DePaul or Cagayan de Oro? So today, I would like to share with you what we are trying to do, what's going on in our neck of the woods in Mindanao and in Southeast Asia. Today, let me practice my slide. So as I was saying, today we live in very dangerous and very trying times. Over the last decade, we have witnessed the rise of intolerance in communities divided by religious, ethnic, and cultural lines, such as us in southern Philippines and Mindanao. Intolerance is a threat to social cohesion and fuels radicalization in society. Religion, increasingly present in the public space in Southeast Asia, has progressively become more prominent, a more prominent role in both conflict and peace, as you can surmise after the happenings of 9/11. In times of crisis, in response to perceived threats, whether military, political, or financial, even environmental, it is natural for people to turn to religion for support and guidance. Globally, after the heinous attacks of 9/11, we have seen the rise of religious fundamentalism and faith-based politics. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because in a democracy, we require that all sectors participate in decision-making. And if you have very influential groups that are religious in nature, it is only right that they become part of the political process as well. In the Middle East, after the Arab Spring of 2011, we have seen the rise to power of political parties and movements, influenced by religious groups or positions. Faith-based conservative political parties won power over the progressives and liberals who had led the revolution in Egypt, Tunisia, and other places. Unfortunately, as religion and politics have come together, we have also witnessed the rise of intolerance. In Egypt, a few years ago, a referendum approved a new constitution that Christian Egyptians fear did not grant sufficient rights to minorities. Over the last couple of years, we have the ISIS, the Boko Haram, that have become the best-known examples of intolerance expressed violently. Their goal is to establish an Islamic caliphate over their territory using violence as a tool against their enemies and against peoples of other faith. Their influence have actually expanded and have reached Southeast Asia, have reached Mindanao, especially conflict-affected Mindanao. Unfortunately, this situation has given rise to misconceptions and false narratives that are being spread, which instead of unifying our position for peace, is strengthening the divide that actually fuels radicalization, such as what's happening in the United States with this young man in particular. And I understand that President Obama actually invited him to the White House to say, to apologize for what had happened to him. I mean, how often does that happen? How many thousands of incidents happen here and abroad that are not caught in time and that can now push young people into areas, into avenues that would lead to violence? This, for instance, happened in Zamboanga City after the assassination attempt of a leading Muslim cleric. The photo is nondescript. It's a photo of a young man. But this is the language used by the police in Zamboanga City. He says, this picture is of a Muslim type. You from Chicago, you take a look at that picture. Looks like a Chicago type to me. With the hood. I can imagine him doing hip-hop or rap or something. But a Muslim type? How is that a Muslim type? This is happening everywhere we go. The more the Boko Haram and the ISIS hog the news, the more such discrimination and intolerance appears in areas all over the world far away from the center of the armed conflict. In Southeast Asia, known for its moderation, identity politics and faith have become intertwined in communities that are under threat, like conflict-affected Mindanao. In the Philippines, our government's response towards the armed conflict with Muslim liberation fronts in Mindanao has ranged from a hardline military approach to political negotiations for peace to interfaith dialogue. After over 40 years of war with the liberation fronts, government and other stakeholders have realized that war does not work. Responses to be effective require an appreciation of the diversity within our communities. What we need is a better understanding of the issues specific to the community, such as the ethnic conflict in Muslim Mindanao between the Bangsamoro community and the state. Even more, the diverse peoples of Mindanao must accept that we all live on one island, one large community, that we must be willing to work together, to live together. Otherwise, we die. But we're still together on the same island, no escaping. Diversity in Mindanao has been a challenge and a blessing. While Muslims and Christians and the indigenous peoples, who are called Lumad, generally get along as neighbors despite their differences, it is the periodic breaking out of armed conflict and political controversies that strain the relationship amongst the peoples of Mindanao. The political tensions and differences are manipulated by those who would use religious differences to recruit followers. Thus, over the past 10 years, we at the Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy have conducted both intrafaith and interfaith discussions to try and bridge the chasm of differences. And ladies and gentlemen, who better to lead the dialogue than the religious? Now I would like to talk about the role of the Muslim religious teachers and leaders. In a purposive survey that we conducted November to December of 2011 in the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao that comprises 5 provinces, with 4,000 respondents, we found out that the religious leaders had the highest trust rating among all leaders in the community. And we're talking village level. Well, the village is what we call the barangay. The Muslim religious leaders had a trust rating of 89%. We combined those who said they had the highest trust, much trust, and those who said somewhat trust in a particular leader. So combined 89% for the religious. Among the elected government officials, the one that got the highest rating, with a total of 71%, was the village captain, the barangay captain. The mayor obtained a total of 65%, and the governor only had 55%. So a lot of influence is wielded by the religious leaders. Doesn't it therefore become logical that the religious leaders should be involved in such issues as peace, peaceful resolution of conflict, good governance, clean and honest elections? This survey clearly illustrated what we had always surmised about the tremendous influence of the Muslim religious leaders. Recognizing the crucial impact and the influential roles of the ulama as catalysts for peace and development, we have been working with the ulama to facilitate national and regional networking among numerous ulama groups. The ulama is the religious scholar, religious leader or teacher in our community. By building strong links, the ulama can become more effective in working on peace and development issues. Unfortunately, a number of critical problems prevent our ulama from maximizing their role as religious leaders and educators. And the role of the Islamic school, the madaris, for the empowerment of a peaceful community. First, the Philippine ulama and the madaris graduates have not been able to fully realize their strategic role in society, since most of our Islamic schools have exclusively focused on teaching Arabic and Islamic religious subjects, unlike Catholic schools that expand the whole range of academic subjects from law to science to religion. Second, there has been little capacity building for the Muslim religious leaders in community outreach outside of religious matters. Many professionals have expressed their concern that the ulama have not provided the community with the teachings to guide them in day-to-day life. According to some people that we have interviewed, and I quote, "They have been good in teaching our children on how to pray and fast, but we also wish that our ulama are capable of handling contemporary issues such as child soldiers, corruption, pornography, HIV/AIDS. Third, the Islamic faith is not as organized or hierarchical as the Christian churches. This makes it more difficult to gain consensus among the Muslim religious on issues involving many communities. Fourth, the base of support of the Muslim religious are in the poorest of the poor communities of the Philippines, which results in tremendous resource constraints. In spite of all of these constraints, or because of these constraints, we at the Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy have endeavored to work with our Muslim religious on advocacies that will strengthen the base for peace and interfaith harmony. Since 2002, we have been reaching out to the Muslim religious leaders, MRLs for short, to engage them. Over time, the MRLs have learned to trust us, although we are a very secular civil society organization. As you can tell, I don't normally wear the hijab, and our ulama have learned to accept that. They have actually requested us to help them organize a national network. And for 3 years, we worked with them on networking, and we have established the National Ulama Conference of the Philippines, the NUCP for short. As a proof of their success, more than 6 of the trustees, I think 7 of the trustees of the NUCP have actually been appointed to very high government offices. They have become commissioners of the National Commission for Muslim Filipino. Now, what can the religious do, or what should they do to help us in establishing a just and peaceful society and in resolving conflicts peacefully, non-violently? First, we have to talk about interfaith dialogue. Decades ago, the peoples of Mindanao had benefited from action taken by the Catholic Church and schools following Pacem in Terris. As the conflict in Mindanao continued and as peace efforts faltered, priests and nuns and teachers developed interfaith dialogue and peace education to bring peoples together. The peoples of Mindanao have come to realize that creative solutions must be implemented to finally end the conflict that has robbed millions of a bright future. More and more realize that Mindanao is their common land, a land that they can only enjoy if they can forge a common peace. Interfaith dialogue has become a vital tool in forging a common peace for Mindanao. Unfortunately for us, interfaith dialogue is a strong tool in the hands of the Catholic universities and the Catholic teachers and priests. In the hands of the Muslim religious, this has not been as widely utilized. Why is that? Perhaps it is because interfaith dialogue started with the church, and therefore there is a perception that interfaith dialogue is a Christian thing, that engaging in interfaith dialogue would somehow reduce the strength of Islamic influence in Muslim communities. Which is why, when a common word came to be written by the most respected Muslim scholars of the world, this has become a powerful instrument for us to use as we seek to strengthen interfaith dialogue in our communities. What is a common word? If you recollect the speech of Pope Benedict in St. Regensburg, there was rallies and rioting in many places in the Islamic world. 38 Muslim scholars came together and wrote a document and sent it to Pope Benedict and to leaders of the Christian world to neutralize the negative effect of that particular statement that Pope Benedict quoted. We don't understand why he had to quote a relatively unknown emperor, Emperor Palaeologus, who said something to the effect that nothing good ever came out of Islam or something like that. But anyway, a common word provided us Muslims with a powerful platform for strengthening interfaith dialogue and collaboration amongst Muslims who view interfaith dialogue as something essential for both communities. So since 2008, we at PCID have conducted intrafaith dialogue first, consolidating the thoughts of those who have influence in our faith. We have had intrafaith discussions of a common word down to the village level, engaging our religious leaders, civil society, and our youth. Given the wariness of grassroots Muslim religious to interfaith dialogue and peace education, it was important to first engage them in intrafaith discussions. A common word expounds on God's commandments to Muslims to love Him and to love their neighbors, referring to their brothers and sisters from the different Abrahamic faiths. The Holy Quran commands, "Say, O people of the Scripture, come to a common word between us and you, that we shall worship none but God, and that we shall ascribe no partner unto Him, and that none of us shall take others for lords besides God. And if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we are they who have surrendered unto Him." And this is from the Holy Quran. A common word which focuses on the need to love your neighbor has found a lot of support, not just from Muslim scholars, but from leaders of the Christian world. It led us to a meeting with Pope Benedict. There was a discussion between the Vatican leaders, Christian leaders, and Muslim leaders, and I was lucky enough to have been included in the group that met with him. And since then, there has been an outpouring of support from both Christian groups, Muslim groups, and fortunately for us, other faiths as well. The Jewish community, the Jewish religious leaders have come out and offered their support and have started using a common word as basis for dialogue. Pope Benedict said in Amman, Jordan in 2009. He echoed the theme of his first encyclical, the unbreakable bond between love of God and love of neighbor, and the fundamental contradiction of resorting to violence or exclusion in the name of God. Pope Francis has also commented, and he has said, faced with disconcerting episodes of violent fundamentalism, our respect for true followers of Islam should lead us to avoid hateful generalizations, for authentic Islam and the proper reading of the Quran are opposed to every form of violence. We have also sought other venues for establishing dialogue, for reaching out to the other. And we finally realized, who better than a woman to extend the proverbial olive branch to the other side? And we thought nobody could be more perfect than Mary. Mariam, as she is called by the Muslims. We in the Philippines last year, the young people within the PCID, started to collaborate and have started what they call the Mariam movement. When they created this icon, the first thing that people see is a woman carrying a baby. But the Muslims also see a Muslim woman wearing a hijab carrying a baby. So the icon starts already the conversation rolling among Christians and Muslims. And when the Muslims start telling their Christian brothers and sisters that there is a chapter in the Quran named after Mary, that immediately breaks the ice. Because in the Holy Bible, there is no chapter named after Mary. But the Muslims do. The point, I think, that is made by using the Virgin Mary or Mariam as an example is that if a group of people who believe in Mary and hold her as the highest among women cannot automatically resort to violence as their way of ending conflict. Because Mary is not a warrior. She is a mother. So peace and Mary are synonymous. And what better way to start a dialogue than by having discussions about the role of Mary, the role of Maria in our lives. We have gone many places with the Mariam movement. We have gone to colleges and high schools. We have had pledging sessions. This is in northern Philippines. 1,000 high school students actually joined the Mariam movement. We have organized discussion groups with religious leaders and scholars. And the young people in our office have put us on Facebook, on Twitter. I don't know how to do this, but you probably are better aware of how to do this. So if you wanted to join a movement, you can actually go on the website and join the movement. Talking more about intrafaith work, we have also realized that we need to work on Islamic concept of peace education. Again, because in the minds of people, since peace education started from the Catholic side, from the Catholic universities and from Christian leaders, they always thought of peace education again as Catholic, as Christian, that engaging in peace education meant lessening your Muslimness. So we had to try and show that peace education is very much Islamic. This book that we have developed, which came out in 2008, uses Quranic scripture, uses the Hadith, as we discuss peace education. And when we talk about peace education, we talk about the whole range of pillars to have a just and lasting peace. It's not just peaceful resolution of conflict. We also talk about good governance, because bad governance can lead you to conflict. Clean and honest elections, and what is the role of the citizen We talk about women's rights, human rights, rights of the child. Because all of this can become triggers, can become drivers for conflict if improperly handled. We talk about the environment and what is the role of a God-fearing Muslim who is the steward of God on earth. He is actually required to take care of his environment. And if your environment deteriorates, again, more trigger for conflict. With this book in the hands of our religious leaders and teachers, we now have a better basis for pushing the idea that the peaceful resolution of conflict is very much an Islamic thing. It is not just a Christian thing. And then there is the role of women. Even as we tried to organize the Muslim religious into the National Ulama Conference of the Philippines, the women also became part of the organizing effort. In the Philippines, more women teach in the Islamic schools than men. More women teach in the madrasa than men. And they have come to us and asked them to organize them as well. So they have developed a network called the Nurus Salam, or the Light of Peace. And these women are present in all of our communities, teaching Arabic and religion in the madrasa. The difference is now they're also learning to teach other things. We are engaging them, training them to be peace advocates, to learn how to resolve conflict, and they have now become part of what we call the Women's Peace Collective. These women have also worked with us on human rights. Basically, we look at what Islam says about the rights, and we have come up with this book, which is being used now by the Commission on Human Rights. Basically, at the end of the day, this is what everybody is concerned about. What will happen to our children? What will happen to our families if we do not engage in peaceful resolution of conflict? At the end of the day, we cannot do it one sector by himself or herself. It has got to be done together. If we work together, peace is within reach, development is within reach. But we can only do this if we are bonded as a community. And the key to bonding the community, ladies and gentlemen, in our mind, is still in the hands of the religious. So at the end of the day, we need to work on capacitating our religious leaders and teachers, whether they are Muslim, Christian, or other faith, because they are the ones who hold our hearts together and who have access to our minds as well. So ladies and gentlemen, friends, thank you for giving me this time to talk to you about what we're doing in Mindanao, and I certainly hope that this is not going to be the end of our work together, and that this will be the start of a beautiful friendship in peace. Thank you.
I would like to greet my friend and my partner in dialogue, Ms. Amina Rasul Bernardo. I'm able to be there because of my recent accident. I had a craniotomy, so I cannot fly for the next 7 months. When I visited the conflict area between the Philippine government troops and the Bangsamoro Islamic freedom fighter. So after taking that place, Barangay T in Datupiang, I visited the place. They asked me to go and visit to see the refugees. So I banged my head against the kiosk, against the pin, and that was the beginning of my troubles. So I had a craniotomy. So I'm here in the Philippines greeting everyone. Good morning here and good evening there. So I would like to begin my talk by saying that we are living in a very dangerous yet interesting times. You and I know that the war against terror is practically like a tidal wave sweeping across the globe, around. And there is an increasing, not decreasing, increasing paranoia to see everything that appears different as a threat and with suspicion. Tragedies of killings like the recent beheading of the Abu Sayyaf of the Ghanaian citizen send cheaters as well as continue to divide our faith communities in simple categories. They just put the other as the good guys and the different guys as the bad guys. This is the sad state of divisions. And I suppose easily Christians and Muslims fall into temptation that Muslim-Christian religion is all about antagonism, about class of civilizations. And yet we know for a fact that there is a strand of Christian-Muslim experiences involving not only religious leaders, but also ordinary people of deep neighborhood, of helping each other in the village level, or in the town level, or even in the national level. Yes, there are two strands in our relationship, that of antagonism, suspicion, and fear on the one hand, and on the other hand, there is what we call the experience of neighborhood and the experience of brotherhood, of perhaps fellowship, to be politically correct. In short, our relationship will be similar to the phenomenon of what we call the yin and the yang elements in all our life. The yin, the negative, and the yang being the positive. This has characterized the relationships between Muslims, Christians all over the world, including Muslims, Christians in the southern Philippines. I would like to borrow, and you have it in your paper, publish a quotation, of course, from no other than the great poet, English poet Shakespeare, in describing the British as well as the French during the great battle in the Henry V Act 4 prologue. Creeping murmur and the falling dark fill the white vessel of the universe. From come to the foul womb of night, the hum of either army's steady sounds. The defeat sentinels almost receive the secret whispers of his other's watch. Each battle sees the other's unheard face. I think this is a very appropriate description, very often in that one strand of Muslim Christian religion in the southern Philippines, that we watch each other with big sentinels and even with the whispers of each other's hush. I would like to present my own life as an experience in Mindanao to cut short of my speech and my talk. And this will be presenting to you the 5 traditions of Muslim Christian relation, the positive one, the young side. So, I would like to begin by presenting 2 quotations that have become the keynote of my life in my work with the Muslims. The first is a quotation from the Quran, and this is Surah 5, verse 82. It says, "Thou wilt surely find the nearest of them in love to the believers are the ones who say we are Christians, that because some of them are priests and monks, and they wax now proud." In Arabic, of course, it is also in Arabic, that La yastakbiruna. The la yastakbiruna means they wax not proud. Priests and monks intermediates. When I wrote that the first time, in the presence of Ustad Salamat, the founder as well as the leader, and till now recognized, so then Salamat, they were waxing actually and thriving because they recognized the prophetic tradition. The second keynote of my life is taken from the Vatican Council, Nostra Aetate, and they have celebrated the anniversary, 60th anniversary of Nostra Aetate. And I quote, the Church has also a high regard for the Muslims. They worship God who is one, living and subsistent, merciful and almighty, the creator of heaven and earth, was also spoken to men. They strive to submit themselves without reserve to the hidden decrees of God, just as Abraham submitted himself to God's plan. To his faith, Muslims eagerly link their own. All are acknowledging him as God. They venerate Jesus as a prophet. His Virgin Mother they also honor, and even times devoting both. Further, they await the day of judgment and the reward of God following the resurrection of the dead. For this reason, they highly esteem an upright life and worship God especially by way of prayer, alms deed, and fasting. It is within this context that I will present the 5 traditions of Muslim Christian religion in the southern Philippines. The first tradition, though it is not, as I said, perhaps tidal wave, but ripples, but these 5 traditions, ripples as they are, will combine, will become a wave, hopefully, and tsunami in the future. The first tradition is the attempt to bridge the Muslim-Christian divide through education and development in the southern Philippines. In particular, my congregation, the Office of Missionary, Office of Milky Magnet in Cotabato and the Sulu Archipelago, began the Notre Dame school systems. And Amina, if I'm not mistaken, is a graduate of Notre Dame school during her high school. There is a great disparity when it comes to education. Even today, the high illiteracy rate in the autonomous region of Mindanao, as a matter of fact, the survival cohort is almost 46%, that meaning to say, if there is 100 pupils going to grade 1 level, only about 46 pupils will be able to graduate grade 6. And of the 46 who will go to high school, and now class 2, because of the adoption of kindergarten to grade 12, there will be only 20 who will graduate high school. If we do not level the education gap, including the development gap, I don't think there will be a really sustainable peace as well as resolving the poverty in the autonomous region. It is for this reason that I see establishment of the schools all over the islands, all over parts of Mindanao, that formed the first tradition, and this was begun also by the Americans, beginning after the pacification in 1913 of establishing public schools in the Moro, so-called Moro province. Indeed, it is part and parcel of the Catholic tradition in the popular progression that development, and that includes education, is another name for peace. The Catholics, as Amina said, has been in the forefront of education as well as development following Vatican. Similarly also, the famous Mindanao Sulu Pastoral Conference in Mindanao is where the consortium of dioceses and prelatures began implementing programs of dialogues, programs of development, and programs also of real encounter in Muslim and Christians. To the point, it's good for me to have listened to Amina. The transaction of the Muslim that interfaith religious dialogue has become belongs to Christian and Catholic initiative. The second tradition is the struggle for justice and human rights, particularly during the period of Mercado. Arbitrary arrests, detentions, military zoning that is encirclement of communities, where all males were lined up on the public squares, houses were searched and ransacked, and there are cases of salvaging, killed or liquidated because of suspicion of being rebels. Muslim Christian leaders, particularly in the Cotabato area, associated with Bishop Antonino Nepomuceno of Cotabato, the Episcopal Bishop Mangoramas, and the Muslim head of the ulama in Cotabato, Sheikh Omar Bajulai, grouped themselves to become the defenders of people who struggle for justice and whose rights have been violated. I personally believe that the second tradition is very valid and continues to be very privileged opportunity in bridging Muslims and Christians. The work for justice, the work for peace, and the work for human rights. The third tradition will be personified by Bishop Benedito Tutut of Marawi, that is in Lanao del Sur, and the martyred Benedict Jesus of Olosulu. Both bishops were jovial and friends to all. It is a tradition of establishing friendship with the Muslims, of being one of them, and it is a humble servant and sympathetic to the larger community whose dominant populations will be Muslim. It is the tradition of friendship and fellowship, both visible and invisible. And I believe that is one of the bridges that need to be cultivated in bridging the gap between Muslim and Christians, particularly in this period and era of extremism. The fourth tradition, and this will be more associated with me, and believe it or not, I just realized today, by listening to my good friend Amina, that peace education is also read by some of the ulamas as Catholic or Christian. Yes, it emanated from many universities. As a matter of fact, in the time of President Ramos, he spearheaded peace education as one of the flag programs of the Ramos administration, and the university trained peace educators in 9 universities in Mindanao so that they will integrate in their curriculum the peace education. Definitely, peace is not only a peace process, but it is a culture. And when it is a culture, it is something to be learned, it's something to be that you have to choose. And you have to school yourselves into the way of peace. And this is true, especially following the 1996 final peace agreement between the Philippine government and the Mormon National Liberation Front. And especially now, it is true also after the signing of the other peace agreement with the Mormon National Liberation Front in 2014, the comprehensive Bangsamoro Agreement. The gap is still there. The suspicion is still there. As I said, it is a relationship of the yin and the yang, the negative and the positive. And very often the negative is far more dominant than the positive. As going back to the quoted Shakespeare rhyme, we see each other with a big sentinel and see in other the umbered veins of the enemy. The fifth tradition is involvement in the peace process with the civil society, like the PCID of Ms. Amina Rasul. Many civil society organizations are coming together to be involved in the peace negotiation table, not necessarily as direct negotiators, but dialogue with the telling all sundry that this process is not exclusive of government and the rebel fronts. By and large, the stakeholders, the ordinary Muslim, the ordinary Christians, the leaders of Muslims and Christian communities who are not government and not rebels have been largely excluded. The big tradition is the existence of the civil society group and the insistence of various sectors to be participants in the peace process. Unless they do participate in the peace process, no peace formula will be sustainable and will be possible. And this is the very reason perhaps why there is a failure of the passage of the Bangsamoro Basic Law in the last Congress, precisely because of the great divide between Muslims and Christian communities and leadership. And they still see in this other place the umber face of the enemy. These traditions, as I said, the 5 traditions, perhaps the young in the relationship of Muslim and Christian will always be part of the picture and will continue to characterize the picture of our relationship. In the same way as conflict, terrorism, extremism will be the yin of our relationship. However, I do believe that more than ever, that we have the religious leaders as people of the schools and universities quoting St. John Paul II in his discourse in the Umayyad Mosque when he visited Damascus, that we have to present our communities in respectful dialogue. Never more as communities in conflict. People of extremism present our two religions as communities in conflict. And perhaps in Mindanao also, they present our religions as communities in conflict for the same land and the same interest. It is high time that we present the land, Mindanao, to be ours. We cannot erase the other. As a matter of fact, the future of the Muslim is tied to the Christian settlers and the indigenous people in Mindanao. In the same way also as the future of the Christians and the indigenous people is tied to the future of the Muslim communities in Mindanao. We should present our two religious traditions not in opposition as it happened in the past and still happening in the present with the rise of the Abu Sayyaf, the rise of the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighter, with the rise of ISIS and other groups. But rather, more than ever, we should present our religions as partners for the good of the human tragedy. Ultimately, I believe that there is a need of a new awakening, a new opening in our Christian-Muslim relations. In the Arabic language, the word is Cotabato. This is the new attitude. Hopefully, it will pave the way for a new beginning for each one of us. And it is the passage, the new passage from the culture of extremism to the culture of moderation and culture of respect and culture of peace. In conclusion, I would like to quote, I was in Egypt when President Anwar Sadat was assassinated, so he played the video call, shaping my attitude when I was a young priest. So I will quote Anwar Sadat when he visited Jerusalem, November 14, 1977, and he said this at the Knesset. He said, "Yet there remains another wall. This wall continues and constitutes a psychological barrier between us. a barrier of suspicion, a barrier of rejection, a barrier of fear, of deception, a barrier of hallucination without action, deeds or decision, a barrier of distorted and eroded interpretation of every event and statement. It is this official statement as constituting 70% of the whole process. Today, to my visit to you, I ask, why don't we stretch out our hands with faith, sincerity, so that together we might destroy this barrier? Why should not ours and your will meet with faith and sincerity, so that together we might remove all suspicion of fear, betrayal, and ill intention? Why don't we stand together with the bravery of men and women and the boldness of heroes who dedicate themselves to a sublime objective? Why don't we stand together with the same courage and boldness to erect a huge edifice of peace that builds and does not destroy? An edifice that is a beacon for generations to come, a human message of construction, development, and the dignity of man. Why should we bequeath to the coming generations the flight of bloodshed, death, orphans, widowhood, family integration, and the waiting of peace? Yes, more than ever, we need to stretch out hands to each other and together destroy that barrier of suspicion and fear, especially in this period of extremism. God bless and thank you.
Thank you so much, Father June. For those who are actually taking notes, there are points of the traditions that Father June probably you missed out. The 5 traditions that were mentioned by Father June. The first one is in education, to eradicate illiteracy in Mindanao. The second one would be the fights against human rights. The third tradition would be in the dialogue of life. The fourth tradition would be on peace education. And the fifth tradition would be that of involvement of the peace process. Those who are taking notes, and you missed some of the traditions that he was mentioning. So now we're opening the floor for our introduction, and if you have questions, we have Amina here and our very own Father June to answer your questions. Anybody who wants to start the ball rolling?
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. You mentioned an important thing in your attempts to involve religious leaders in Mindanao. And you mentioned also that they were focusing on teaching their students Arabic and some Islamic related subjects. Yeah. After Muhammad, peace be upon him, gave his message, the first thing that we witness is the rise of the Islamic nation. And 8 of the oldest universities that we have, the official universities, are Islamic. So after that, something dangerous happened, which is that some people, they believe that gaining knowledge is only the religious knowledge. That's when we lost it. And I think that's a loss for the whole world. I would love to say that I wish that these religious leaders will induce people to go to knowledge, because it will solve all of our problems. But if I said that, I will just be an ignorant, because I know that it needs lots of resources. And as you said, that this territory or part of the Philippines is located in poverty, and they don't have such resources. The lack of education led to the rise of ISIS and some radicals. Last year they killed one of the most distinguished figures in archaeology, which is Khalid al-Assad. He was one of a kind, or maybe the best one to represent the city of Palmyra. So, my question to you is, what do you think these religious leaders can do to enhance this? Because from my point of view, the only solution for this is education. Why am I saying that? Because when I sit with a religious guy or two religious guys, when I speak to an educated one, it's easier for me. Both of them are religious, both of them practicing faith, but I can find that the educated one is the easiest one of them. So, what do you think that you religious leaders and the ulama can contribute to this thing, which is enhancing the education of the people that they are leading?
Thank you for that question, brother.
Sorry, I didn't introduce my name. My name is Rabi.
Rabi.
Yeah.
Well, first on the low levels of education, which Father June had already talked about, in the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao, the 5 provinces of the autonomous region, the illiterate adults are more than 1/3 of the voting population. More than 1/3 of voters, 0 literacy. I run another foundation which was established by my mother. And our focus is to reduce the levels of adult literacy. Over the last 4 years, we graduated 63,700 adults to become functionally literate. We see that this is essential. An illiterate person cannot participate in governance, cannot participate in economic development, simply because he is excluded. He cannot read, he cannot write, and he is very easy prey for manipulation. So we see that, and we've been working on adult literacy for since the 1960s, actually. Unfortunately, our government is very slow to pick that up. We cannot understand why government will not invest in adult literacy, because it's quick turnaround. 4 months, 120 hours of teaching, and a 0 literate adult becomes functionally literate and becomes a more productive member of society. And the cost, it's ridiculous. It's like a few Starbucks cups. 2,500 pesos is like what, $50? With $50 as a scholarship, we can convert a 0 literacy adult to functional literacy. In Muslim Mindanao, most of the illiterates who come to our classes are women. And think about it, an illiterate mother will raise illiterate children. So we cannot understand why government is not investing more resources in adult literacy, unless, of course, and this is conspiracy theory, unless some political leaders find that it is easier to manipulate illiterate adults, which is why they don't invest in adult literacy. So yes, we concede that and we are working on it. Now, with regards to the teachings in the madrasa, we also recognize the power of the Islamic schools of the madrasa. But our approach to the matter has been very slow, and we only go as far as the religious wants us to go. Luckily for us, most of the women who teach in the madrasa, who are part of Jerusalem, have agreed to work on so many issues and to start teaching outside of class. So after they teach Arabic and after they teach religion, memorizing the Quran, we now have women who teach in the madrasa, who are part of Jerusalem, who teach about human rights, who teach about women's rights. They even teach water, sanitation and hygiene, wash. They also, in one group, they actually asked us to help them get the training so that they could work on disaster risk reduction and mitigation. and trauma healing. What to do with young people when disaster hits the area. So yes, there is a recognition that the madrasa can play a very strong role if it opens up and becomes more of the center of educational excellence, which it was before the doors of ijtihad was closed. And what we would like is for our religious leaders to start opening up again the madrasa as the center for intellectual discourse as it was in the days of the Holy Prophet. So perhaps you can have Chicago and DePaul start working on bringing together Islamic scholars who can actually talk about how do you open the doors of ijtihad all over again.
Can I just add one thing? I was writing about this subject today at school, and one of the information that I came across to that most countries, you mentioned that you wish that if you had some politicians to help you in getting the resources you need for education, but I feel sorry when I look at the budgets of countries and I see that they are investing in military more than education. And when it comes to education budget, they will simply tell you we don't have the budget. I hope that this will change someday. Thank you.
There's actually a question here raised. Are you going to say something, Father, about the question? Or
Yes,
okay.
very good. I'd like the discussion. First and foremost, I agree with Amina and the one who asked the question. There are three factors really that I see. First is the level of illiteracy and the, as you said, the survival cohorts in the formal education in the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. Unless we face that as a real challenge in our development and educational one, there will be no real upliftment and sustainable peace. The second one is, believe it or not, is that poverty is widespread in the whole Philippines. The poorest is the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. The poverty incidence is 40%. These two constitute fertile grounds for extremism. But you add another factor, which is dysfunctional government and lack of budget. As the budget of the autonomous region for many years until 2010 constitutes 0.6% of the national budget. Well, when I was presented to me by then the late Bongkodin, our budget commissioner, that 0.6% of the national budget goes to autonomous region, I told them, would you now wonder why these people will be really rebelling? Because they constitute only 0.6% of the national budget. This improved from 2010 to the present because now we really approximate 1.5% of the national budget. From about 9 billion, it is doubled now last year plus extra funds. But if you have a combination of dysfunctional local government units in many municipalities and province plus corruption, even the little budget that they have, you have 40 grounds for extremism. So the solution to me is definitely attend to public education, support the madaris and mainstream the madaris, and then definitely the poverty levels should be based, and the all peace that is with from familia, the support to work up and in government to definitely 40% must be resolved. And lastly, definitely you should have a functional local government and the increase of budget in the autonomous region. And then perhaps you will be able to prevent extremism.
Thank you so much, Father. There's actually a question written here. This is about, what about the role of the USAID, or United States Agency for International Development, with Peace and Order Department to foster peace and order, especially in southern Philippines? Is there any?
Well, USAID has had a stronger role to play, maybe 3 years ago. They've actually cut down their engagement in the areas of conflict of Mindanao. The resources of USAID are now spread more outside the areas of conflict. We don't know why this shift, but it has happened. The Australians are playing a bigger role in the areas of conflict than USAID. And maybe the brothers and sisters who are here can actually lobby with USAID that maybe they should increase their investment in the areas of conflict again, since they are leading the international coalition for countering violent extremism. And a little bit on countering violent extremism. We have lobbied that perhaps what they should be looking at really is the prevention of violent extremism. Because when you counter, that means it's there. And you and I know, if violent extremism has already taken root, it's very difficult to counter. So prevent it from happening, and it brings you back again to education, the role of the madrasa in the communities, the role of the religious leaders in the community, and perhaps USAID can actually start looking at how they can invest in developments for prevention of violent extremism, focusing on education.
Thank you. Father?
Yes, definitely the multilateral assistance to Southern Philippines, especially because of support to the peace process, help. But as I said, the Philippine government has a lot of money. As a matter of fact, they can develop the Southern Philippines even without the help of the USAID or perhaps the Australian, the European, or even the UN. We are awash with money. If you perhaps heard the report of the anomalies of the PDAP and the DAP, the unconstitutional allocations of funds of all the surplus in the budget, the amount to about 170 billion. And then the budget of the autonomous procedure is about only 14 billion. When I was still very good friend of President Pinoy Aquino, I've been lobbying at least to give internal revenue allocation to 11 municipalities of the autonomous region with no hero. How can they survive? And it amounts only to about several million. Then they said it cannot be possible. Then I heard suddenly that 170 billion in the DAP is the disbursement of all the surplus fund. So my point only is that with no budgetary allocation, with little, though increased budgetary allocations in the autonomous region, how do you expect?
Okay. Some technical difficulties that we have. We can actually entertain one last question because we're running out of time. So if anyone wants to have the last, please, sir, if you can introduce yourself. And
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dale Aziz. I contributed to Mindanao. I established a small diaspora philanthropy foundation, and I've been feeding Muslims in Iligan near Marawi. We've fed about 10,000 people in the last 5 years. And I've just noticed, I'm living here in Chicago, and I noticed, maybe it's just anecdotal, the huge disparity, not just in wealth, but in power of the Christian families. I mean, my uncle's a medical doctor, he's Christian, and all the people that are helping the Muslims, and I couldn't help to see the extreme poverty of the other side of the Muslim sides. And so I know that Father June and Ms. Bernardo alluded to the extreme illiteracy rates and poverty, but can you also speak to maybe there is a tentative connection to the huge disparity of privilege and wealth as well? between the two groups, and how does that play into building peace?
Well, first let me say that the Muslims of Mindanao waged wars because the basic ground was our sovereignty was stolen, and they asked the American government, because we were a protectorate of the United States at the time, that if the Philippines was going to be granted independence, they didn't want to be part of an independent Philippines because they knew that we would always be second-class citizens. In spite of that, the Muslim sultanates became part of the Philippines and have been neglected since the time that the Republic was created. However, even with that neglect, we were never poorest of the poor. Let me just give you two statistics, 1970 and 1990. Access to electricity and access to water. If you have access to electricity and access to water, you're not poorest of the poor, because you can afford to pay for your water, you have tap water, and you can afford to pay for electricity. In terms of access to electricity, my home province, for instance, was ranked higher than Ilocos Sur. And Ilocos Sur is the province of President Marcos. And we were a neglected community. We had our own co-op, and we had good access to electricity. By 1990, we were bottom. In terms of access to water, we had better access to water, more houses as a percentage and access to water as compared to Pampanga. Pampanga is the province of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo and her father, President Diosdado Macapagal. And yet, we were neglected. What happened between 1970 and 1990 to make us from relatively okay to poorest of the poor? Martial law. Martial law bombed our towns, and when the infrastructure is gone, what happens next? No business. Capital flight. All the money goes out. When money goes out, there are no jobs. So the best and the brightest leave the Muslim areas, the areas of conflict, and where do they settle? Cagayan de Oro, General Santos, Iligan, Davao. So our wealth, our brains make the Christian cities rich. So that has to be remembered, and that is something people forget. They always think that we were always poorest of the poor, the most ignorant, the most violent. No. We were okay before martial law. But now, what has been taken away from us has not been given back. Classic case, budget. There has been no budget for infrastructure that replaced what was destroyed during martial law in the 70s. And we need to get that back. We thought with a stronger autonomous region, we would finally get it back, but then the Congress decided they didn't want to pass the Bangsamoro Basic Law. So a lot of action needs to be taken by government to rectify acts that it had done. Because once this is done, then the businesses will come back. And let me just say that in spite of the armed conflict, Muslim Mindanao is one of the major producers of banana, which is exported to the United States. We are the major exporter of seaweed, which is exported worldwide. So even with the conflict, there are progressive signs in our agricultural sector. Imagine if there was peace and the infrastructure is provided. Then we can again at least recover lost ground in terms of poverty and development.
Thank you. Father June, we're actually running out of time, so if you're going to say something about the question in a few minutes.
Well, it's true. Actually, the development of Davao, when I was in Cotabato from the early 60s to the present. In the 60s, Cotabato City is comparable to Davao City. As a matter of fact, we were the center of culture as well as the center of entertainment. the first air-conditioned theaters in the whole Mindanao was Cotabato City in the 60s, before about. And again, Oro was nothing, it was only a small town. So it is the business of Cotabato that developed Cagayan de Oro, because that's why I know most of the businessmen in Cagayan de Oro, they are all Cotabateños. They moved from Cotabato to Cagayan de Oro, to General Santos, and to Davao. Precisely, this capital flight because of kidnapping, because of war, because of uncertainties, contributed to the poverty base. And that's why I agree with Amina. Well, second point is that, well, it's true on the sovereignty issue, and this is still the MILF, but I think they have found the formula. And I like the formula for the transitional justice. We cannot go back to history. We cannot go back to claiming that sovereignty because there will be war. So what they say is that why not come up with appropriations of X amount so that sort of this is a restitution of justice and for the development of the place, for the rehabilitation of the place, and for the educations also of the Muslims. And because this is the claim, like we have the historical claim of Sabah, that cannot be resolved. We can go back to history, but you can put an appropriation of X amount in the transitional justice for the rehabilitation development of the area. I think that is a very important idea of the Morris Liberation Front that need to be understood. My point is that it is a question of justice, and there is a question of restitution. And you use now this money to develop the area. This is enough.
Okay, so is that it, Father?
Yeah, that's it. So my point is that that is the whole thing, you see. Unless we resolve that, the question of justice is very difficult to have that sustainable peace.
Okay, so thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. A great dialogue. Thank you. And thank you so much, Father June. Have a wonderful evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, before you leave, may I formally again thank Father Erdman for being such a wonderful moderator and our distinguished speakers. To thank you again, and Father June, I don't know if you can receive our love via the internet. Our appreciation goes to you for healing and for strength in your work. And please, as you leave, we will ask you to fill the forms that you have, just kind of your feedback on what happened, and also give us your information. We'd like to keep the conversation going, and I guess there's still some reception out there, so you can have time to interact with our speakers. So join me again in thanking our speakers and our moderator, and all of you. Put your hands together.